As Mullen is on your left, Thanakit is on your right. These players will be given the green light, and we are going to work our way today towards crowning our Season 1 Invitational Champion and punching our 4th ticket to the Players' Championship. Good sportsmanship here. And we will see what Collins is going to start his tournament off with. He will start things off with a breeding pool that enters the battlefield tapped. Here for Kevin Thanakit, he has a Llanowar Elves off of a basic forest. So the acceleration game thus far belongs to Kevin, but unsurprisingly, Collins is going to be able to catch right back up with an Incubation Druid. That is a Merfolk Branchwalker here for Thanakit. Command the Dreadhorde is the top card. That's one of the payoff cards in the matchup.
Although a tough one to hit early. You'd ideally like to top deck this later on in the game. Early on, the hunt is much more for mana and land drops, and it may cause Thanakit to just mill this one over, as we see right here.
Now here's another Llanowar Elf. So Thanakit is doing a nice job of accelerating. The question is, what will he be accelerating to? We will find out soon enough as we head back over to Mullen, who's picked up a copy of Jadelight Ranger. Here is the Jadelight Ranger before playing any lands at all. Top card is a Hinterland Harbor. That'll go to hand. The next one is a Tamiyo, Collector of Tales.
Great set of hits here. Some more mana to work with and a payoff card.
Of course, Jadelight Ranger will get a +1/+1 counter because of the Explorer. And Tamiyo is actually going to go to the graveyard, so Mullen not interested in that. Hinterland Harbor is added to the hand. Breeding Pool enters the battlefield tapped, and we head back over to Kevin Thanakit. Thanakit electing to play Burn in the modern portion of this event to a very healthy record. Now in the top 8 with Sultai Dreadhorde. One of our lesser known players in the top 8 looking to make a name for himself is Thanakit.
Interesting to see Mullen there pass over a Planeswalker. Wonder if it was informed by feeling uncertain if he could protect it because Thanakit's battlefield is already pretty wide, or if he just needs more mana.
Perhaps he felt it was a redundant copy. Who knows? As this is a cast down to take care of the Incubation Druid. Now Thanakit was thinking about playing a little something here. Maybe second guessing himself a little. He's got another copy of Merfolk Branchwalker. Top card is a Wild Growth Walker.
Want to get rid of that one, I'm sure. Not really for this matchup.
Well, it's surprisingly going to keep it. I'm a touch surprised by that as the Branchwalker is now at 3-2. We head back over to Mullen. Mullen will draw a card, picked up a copy of Growth Spiral.
The problem that I have with taking the Wild Growth Walker in general here is trying to get a big, wide battlefield is hard to do in the matchup, I think, under even optimistic circumstances, and especially when you're playing against Mass Manipulation.
That's land drop 1. There's land drop 2. And Mullen will pass the turn back over to Thanakit. Thanakit's going to draw that Wild Growth Walker. I have to imagine we're going to see him deploy that plus an Explorer card this turn if he's electing to keep it on top. There's your block with a Jadelight Ranger trading with a Merfolk Branchwalker. This is a Wild Growth Walker. And now, unsurprisingly, there's your Explorer creature. So, Wild Growth Walker will grow a little bit here. Merfolk Branchwalker will take a look at the top card. Overgrown Tomb is the reveal. And Mullen right now is behind on the battlefield, so that's a bit of a concern, I have to imagine. Looks like Overgrown Tomb's going to enter the battlefield untapped because Thanakit's got a little bit of life to work with. More importantly, also has a copy of Assassin's Trophy in hand.
Yeah, you don't really want to be the beatdown in this kind of matchup. There's a lot of card advantage and trading that goes along. But as far as having to take that position goes, Thanakit's battlefield is pretty good. And there isn't, the best part about all this from his side, there isn't one key piece. It's not easy for Mullen to just steal or kill one thing and slow it down. Thanakit is going wide with a bunch of interchangeable creatures that aren't that threatening to have stolen.
A forest there for Mullen, and it might be time to cast Mass Manipulation, but there is also a copy of Hydroid Krasis in hand. So, 2 big payoffs. And it will be Mass Manipulation just taking a Wild Growth Walker. Not the ideal use for such a powerful card, but it might be good enough for right now.
Well, I think part of the reasoning here is it's so curious for Thanakit to leave a Wild Growth Walker on top of the deck in that kind of spot that I think Mullen suspected the last card in hand could easily be another Explore threat. And at that point, you take a lot of wind out of his sails, and you can block everything.
Here's an attack here for 7, so Mullen's going to fall down to 7. And it's going to be a Breeding Pool that enters the battlefield tap there for Kevin Thanakit. So now Mullen has the ability to draw a card and play a large copy of Hydroid Krasis, and I think that's what we're going to see him do as he taps all 8 mana. Now here is the Hydroid.
And now the biggest thing on the battlefield by far, Thanakit can't find a removal spell. The size of this creature, along with the life that Mullen is gaining, is going to shut down combat and give Mullen the breathing space to leverage his extra cards.
I believe this will bring Mullen up to 10. We will get our life total updated here in just a moment, and there we are. Important time for Thanakit to draw a removal spell here. Tamiyo would also work, and maybe Nissa would be pretty good in this spot.
Well, Tamiyo gives him the ability to rebuy an Assassin's Trophy and use that to keep the beatdowns going.
Or the cast down.
Or the cast down, yeah. Cast down probably better here. But, you know, can you then beat the second wave of stuff that Mullen has accrued from the Krasis the last turn?
Well, there is Tamiyo. Timely top deck there for Kevin Thanakit. Gonna get back the cast down. Gonna play the cast down. That's gonna take care of the Hydroid. Now here's an attack for 3, 4, 5, 6. Mullen's gonna fall down to 4. Mullen's gonna untap all those land. He needs a big turn here, folks. He's in some trouble.
Yeah, I mean, Thanakit can win the next turn through one blocker. So Mullen needs a lot here.
Mullen's gonna start with a Growth Spiral. He will draw a card. Breeding Pool is what he's found. Not what the doctor ordered. There's land 1. Now here's a Jadelight Ranger. Still a land left to play. Take a look at the top card. It's Paradise Druid. That's gone. Force will go to the hand. So that'll be a 3-2. This is Llanowar Elves. That is an Incubation Druid. We got one more land left to play. Breeding Pool enters the battlefield tapped. We head back over to Kevin Thanakit. So Collins Mullen has rebuilt a battlefield, and he's looking to stay alive right now.
So he's got blocks that get him out of this turn. And if Thanakit misses on his draw step here, Mullen can adapt the Incubation Druid and be able to threaten the Tamiyo on the way back. So Mullen's spot here is tenuous. The leftover in his hand just lands, but obviously drawing to a bunch of payoff cards the next turn, if he can get there.
Kevin Thanakit trying to finish this game up before Collins draws another Hydroid Krasis, a Tamiyo, or Mass Manipulation. As Mass Manipulation right now would be for 3 or maybe even 4, depending on how combat goes this turn. The one thing we don't know is what Thanakit drew for the turn, as he's thinking about using Tamiyo. Deciding what card to name. So we will get confirmation of what the name is once he makes his decision. Breeding Pool, Jadelight Ranger, Wild Growth Walker, and Tamiyo are going to the graveyard because Command the Dreadhorde was the name.
Yeah, he's down to 2 copies left on the list. One got milled over early on in the game through an Explore trigger. And it's interesting, if Thanakit is naming Command the Dreadhorde instead of Hydroid Krasis, I think he's suspicious that a Hydroid Krasis may not be able to win the game from this position, that he needs to really shoot it to be able to solidify his position, because he's got 3 hits on Krasis versus 2 on Command.
And there's the trade. What's the final card here in Kevin Thanakit's hand? We don't know just yet, as we're going to head back over to Collins Mullen. He is untapping all of those lands. He'll be drawing a card here in just a moment. Big draw step here. Looks like it was a copy of Llanowar Elves, so it wasn't one of those expensive payoffs.
Llanowar Elves is not that shabby here, as it's another blocker on Thanakit's battlefield. And it would be really nice for Thanakit to be, for Mullen rather, to be able to use the Incubation Druid to do some amount of threatening on the Planeswalker. Though Thanakit just going to cash in right here for a command.
Yeah, Tamiyo's going to go away. Command Dreadhorde is going to go into the hand, and we are going to see Thanakit with 21 life and potentially a whole bunch more cast this and start to really take over this game. What gets interesting now is that Mullen needs to draw Mass Manipulation.
And even then, I mean, he's going to be hard-pressed to get out of this turn. It's still, you know, obviously it's his best draw by far. If he's got any shot of getting back into the game, it's going to involve that, but I'm not even sure that's going to be an out at this point.
The powerful sorcery from War of the Spark has certainly made its mark on this standard format, changing the tenor of these Sultai decks away from fine finality and to a game-winning sorcery most of the time here in Command the Dreadhorde.
Yeah, I mean, this is so overwhelming compared to Raise Dead 2 creatures.
Yeah. We can't forget about all the Explore triggers in combination with Wild Growth Walker here. Now Thanakit's just deciding exactly what he does want to get back. So it looks like Tamiyo, a Jade Light Ranger, a Wild Growth Walker's plural, Merfolk Branch Walker, a couple of those. No, just don't kill yourself in the process here, Kevin, that's all. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 life is what he's going to end up losing. And then gaining back probably more than that.
Well, every Explore trigger is +6 and 2 Jade Light Rangers there. So that's 24. It's a lot. He's going to be
gaining 36 by my math.
Yeah, in the ballpark of 40 life when this is all said and done on top of what he's got on the battlefield.
So away we go. Nissa Who Shakes the World is the first reveal here to the Explore trigger.
And it looks like Thanakit's just going to sit that one on top.
Well, that makes this pretty easy. So Wild Growth Walker will have 6 counters. And Jade Light Rangers will have 2. Merfolk Branch Walker should have 1. See Collins, always a consummate professional, helping out here. And that Tamiyo at 5 counters might be going up to 6. And it will. And I think, unsurprisingly, is going to probably name Nissa Who Shakes the World. And so Nissa is going to go to the hand, and the others will go to the graveyard. Here come the Knuckleheads. And we're going to have Incubation Druid adapt to the situation.
Well, I think Mullen here are going to fall to 2. He's not going to block with the Llanowar Elves, I would imagine, because he wants as much mana as possible for next turn should he draw Mass Manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mullen's doing the count here. If he needs to trade off and keep himself at 4, or if Mass Manipulation is so good along with the 2 Llanowar Elves he can leave behind, that he should fall to 2.
Right now, if you count all the lands that Collins has, along with the 2 Llanowar Elves and the Incubation Druid, it's 16 mana on the table at this exact moment. So it'll be an odd number as he rubs those hands together and hopes for a blue sorcery, but it's island instead. So Kevin Thanakit is going to win game number 1 here over Collins Mullen. Sultai Dreadhorde able to steal game number 1 there over Simic Mass Manipulation.
And the big thing there, in my opinion, was Thanakit having that early pressure, getting onto the battlefield, and forcing Mullen to fire off an early Mass Manipulation in a spot where it wasn't backbreaking. If Thanakit sits around and sort of twiddles his thumbs for a lot of the game, trying to draw extra cards and set up a good battlefield, mass manipulation is going to be backbreaking. If he can manage the game like that, where Mullen is behind the action a little bit and is forced to use mass manipulation defensively on one creature, Thanakit can win those kind of games, as we just saw.
Well, keep in mind that the first couple of games are pre-sideboarded, games 1 and games 2, and then games 3, games 4, and games 5. Those will have sideboards involved, so we will get to the sideboards here in just a moment. Players just taking a look there at each other's deck list before game number 2 will be underway. So in the meantime, we want to talk about the SCGCon Summer Sale that is taking place right now. Not a lot of time left. We're going to change this one on Monday at 11 a.m., but a couple details here from old Patrick Sullivan.
Well, you can head over to go.sarcgames.com/sale to find the items that are on sale. As Cedric mentioned, every Monday, 11 a.m. East Coast time, new cards go on sale, so make sure to be checking back to the website at least once a week. Right now, plenty of cards on sale. A lot of old school stuff, as you can tell from the cards that are up on the screen here. So head on over to go.sarcgames.com/sale and find some goodies, some good deals.
Of which I'm sure there are many.
Ollie from Cairo.
Powerful.
Can't die.
Powerful.
Sick of losing? Go get your hands on an Ollie from Cairo. You literally, they can't kill you if you have that.
Game number 2 going to be underway here in just a moment. Collins Mullen will be on the play. Kevin Thanakit going to be on the draw. Of course, we do have another match taking place behind us that you don't see, that we might have some time to jump over to. That's Jonathan Hobbs and Michael Hamilton in an Esper Superheroes mirror match. That one could take a while. So hopefully we have some time to get our eyes on that one. But as the updates happen on that match, perhaps we will get them and communicate them with you fine people. For now, we turn our attention towards the 23-year-old from Durham, North Carolina, who's currently down a game in Collins Mullen. 14 Opens played last year with 3 top 8s. He's got 8 top 8s all-time on the resume. This is his second invitational top 8, and that open win a couple of years ago in Cincinnati with Modern Humans. He's the one that helped to put that deck, on the map. He also enjoys a little rock climbing and bouldering on occasion. 2 things I'll never be doing.
I've done it a handful of times.
Yeah.
It's a popular activity in Colorado.
I believe it. I prefer to stay grounded, believe it or not. Seems a little safer to me. Looks like Collins is going to take a mulligan. And Kevin, too, it appears. And Kevin, too. Again, we'll have our quarterfinals B brought to you guys later today. Todd Anderson, Ryan Overturf, they'll be taking care of other matches. We're going to watch Evan Buchholz do battle against Annie Jessup. That's Boros Aggro against Sultai Dreadhorde as well. And then Jonathan Awesome Rossum against Colin Roundtree in an Esper Superheroes mirror. Both these players looking at those openers now, they'll do some scrying. Looks like Collins is happy with what he's found. It also looks like he has a Llanowar Elves to start where he didn't last game. And we're off for the Forest and the Mana Accelerant. Thanakit will play a Watery Grave tapped. It's a Breeding Pool that enters the battlefield untapped here for Mullen. And now Incubation Druid and another Llanowar Elves. This is how you draw it up here.
Yeah, next turn he'll have the 5 mana to adapt if Thanakit doesn't kill anything. And then from there, mana shouldn't be a bottleneck for the rest of the game.
Thanakit with a Woodland Cemetery.
Pairings are now available online for round 2 at pairings.starcitygames.com. And they're making their way to the pairings boards. Please make sure to find them on the pairings boards or at pairings.starcitygames.com.
And now a Wild Growth Walker. We're heading back over to Collins now. Collins will draw. Tameo was the draw step, but this is a little bit better than that. It's a turn 3 Nissa who's shaking the world. That Forest is going to become a 3/3 Vigilant creature, which I have to imagine is going to be coming into the red zone. And this is how you draw it up, folks. This is how Simic Mass Manipulation gets the job done. Nissa who shakes the world allows you to add a little bit extra green mana whenever you tap a Forest for mana, but do keep in mind that sometimes your Forest or Breeding Pools are Overgrown Tombs. And so if you're tapping that for black mana, you still get the green.
And this early on in the game, it may be easy for Mullen to just race straight to an ultimate.
Here's a Jade Light Ranger. This who shakes the world will go into the graveyard there for Kevin Thanakit. He will, of course, get the land. And now Wild Growth Walker will gain a little bit of life and turn into a 3/5. Mullen going to draw a card now. A little bit short on blue mana at this stage of things for mass manipulation, but that's a problem that maybe Incubation Druid is here to solve.
Again, players in the 10:30 Modern Challenge. Your pairings are posted at the Gathering Point and online.
For as good as Mullen's start has been, it's lands that are actually kind of avoiding him right now. It's something Tamiyo can't find with the plus.
Yeah, and he's not gonna generate a ton of value off of this Nissa if Thanakit's in a position to keep him off of the ultimate. I think that was the hope from Mullen's perspective, is just going straight to 8, and now I have all the mana in the world to work with. If that is offline, Nissa becomes a lot less threatening.
Looks like they're going to prompt Collins to make a play here. We'll see, he's thought pretty long about his turn thus far. So this will be 4 mana of some sort. Now here's Tamiyo. Up to 6, he'll be naming a card. We'll see if he can find it. Hydrid Krasis is the name, and that's a whiff. Keep in mind, Nissa has not been activated yet this turn, though Tamiyo, Collector of Tales, certainly has been. Nissa will untap a Breeding Pool. That land will become a 3/3. And now I'm just going to pass the turn back with the ability to adapt to the Incubation Druid still. I believe. Nope.
Yeah, he's got 5.
You count. Yeah, Lana Werewolf. Yep, you're good.
Yeah.
Clear for takeoff. Overgrown Tomb is going to enter the battlefield untapped here for Kevin Thanakit. We'll see what this is going to be. Looks like it's going to be a cast down, targeting the land. This is a bit of a weakness for these Nissa decks, is the ability to actually just kind of kill their lands.
It's coming up a lot here, where it's not like Mullen's deck does a lot of threatening inside of combat. It's different for the decks like Sultai Dreadhorde that are still fundamentally about attacking and blocking. But it's come up a lot for Mullen that the ability on Nissa to turn something into be a 3/3, I have watched it be way more drawback than ability.
Adapt is going to resolve there in Incubation Druid. And that means that these creatures got a free shot at Planeswalkers. It's just which ones do they want to kill.
I imagine Tamiyo is the more threatening of the two from here.
Yeah, teaming up and killing Tamiyo as opposed to Nissa.
I mean, the Nissa is, what's it even doing here?
Not a lot. And now Incubate.
Oh,
boy, this
brutal.
This is getting bad here. I think those are both the cast downs in the main deck. Yep. Only 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, Mullen's way behind the curve now.
There's an island, but you take a look at Mullen's hand, and you said it, partner, he is way behind the curve. And what was, again, another pretty darn good start
And the incubation druid was so critical both on just mana and also as being a 3/5 creature. It's something that could block the Wild Growth Walker and the Jadelight Ranger. Now Mullen is in a spot where he either has to be trading off with his remaining scarce resources or allow the Nissa to die.
Well, there's some attack for some creatures, and I think it might be time to let this Nissa go. We'll have to find out, but Mullen is in some serious trouble now as Kevin Thanakit continues his game plan. Tell you what, sometimes these Sultai decks can surprise you.
Yeah, I mean, both of these games, the first game that Thanakit won and the second game where certainly things are going well, by no means a certainty, he's been getting onto the battlefield and applying pressure. He does have a late game that can hang, but you would like for Command the Dreadhorde to be kind of a knockout punch rather than a thing to position you to the second wave of the game. And so the burden's on him to be attacking.
Both these creatures coming at Nissa. You can see Mullen is making this a priority to keep that thing alive.
But another win there for Thanakit in being able to pin more of Mullen's mana.
There's Tamiya. Well, this actually, the deployment of Tamiya is a little bit interesting because that's going to be pretty easy for Mullen to kill.
Right, but so yes, I agree. But that's kind of what I like about Thanakit's play there is you're not going to be able to go up to 6 loyalty and preserve it here. Just get your removal spell. Again, if you knock out the Incubation Druid, then you put Mullen in between a rock and a hard place. If you're trading off your lands that are 3/3s to protect your Nissa, great, you're losing mana. If the Nissa dies, you're down your mana flare, and the 3/3s are exposed in combat or to removal spells down the line. So Thanakit is not trying to, the Tamiya is going to die here and not have a whole lot to show for it, but just rebuying the cast down here, I think advances Thanakit's position enough that it's worth it even if he's not, maybe maximizing a future Tamiya.
Forest, an interesting draw here in this spot as well. There might be the ability to play a mass manipulation. If you do some adapting, I believe, of the Incubation Druid, a card we should take a look at here as well because it's going to start to play a pretty big role in this game.
Well, whatever Mullen's going to do, he's got to kind of cash it in now because next turn that cast down's going to most likely get rid of the Incubation Druid regardless of if he adapts or not. And then you're back in the same spot of trying to protect this Nissa in a spot where it might not be possible to do.
There's a Forest. Yeah, so this is interesting, right? Because I think what Mullen has the ability to do is, tap that for 2 green, untap, which means he may have missed an attack potentially. Yep, adapt this, and then mass manipulation something because this is tapping for blue. Yeah, I'm taking a Wild Growth Walker. So I actually like this turn quite a bit. I was curious if Collins would find that line of play because now he starts to take over a little bit more, and it is very realistic for him to just say, you know what, I can just attack you to death. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3-power creatures in the battlefield right now.
Right. I mean, if you can't maintain your battlefield and you're going to lose all your mana, the way to manage that is make it a short game and try to kill him.
Attention Magic players, we're looking for one more person to begin our next.
Because, the play that Thanakit kind of set up from last turn, which is attack your Nissa and cast down your Incubation Druid, that would leave Thanakit dead.
Well, we got Nissa on the other side of the battlefield now. It's going to turn Overgrown Tomb into a 3-power creature. And this is actually a great play here for Thanakit because not only does he have Overgrown Tomb as a Vigilance attacker, but also now the Overgrown taps for black mana, which will give you a green mana because of this on the battlefield to be able to cast the cast down. So this ends up being a pretty good turn there.
Well, the other big thing about all of this is it allows him to leave something back on defense. If Mullen's trying to shorten up the game here, I almost feel like I would have liked to see the cast down on the mass manipulation, or excuse me, on the incubation druid now, because Mullen has a big draw to just a lot of stuff. But Thanakit's position's a lot better if Mullen doesn't draw anything impactful because he gets to block with the Overgrown Tomb on something, still cast down the incubation druid, and get out of the turn at a much higher life total. It's the risk here. Thanakit's making a calculated risk. If Mullen draws one of his big spells, Thanakit would have strongly preferred to use the cast down now on the incubation druid. If Mullen doesn't draw anything of note, his blocks become a lot better. He may be able to protect the Nissa. He may be able to keep his life total higher. All that stuff matters right now.
The big question is, what has Collins Mullen drawn this turn?
Did he find something big?
Yeah.
A Hydroid Krasis, a mass manipulation makes this play look very bad from Thanakit. If that's not there, the play looks great.
Remember, now that Collins has lost his Nissa, there is no more mana flaring going on, so those forests are just tapping for green mana as opposed to 2 green mana.
And it is really risky for Mullen to be engaging in combat here because he... if he attacks with his lands and they start trading combat, he just runs out of mana, and then he's not drawing to anything big anymore.
Yep. I think if I'm Mullen, I might have some interest in just saying, you know what, I'm attacking you with all of my creatures.
Well, I think attacking the Planeswalker is too likely to leave you in a position where Thanakit gets to gobble up a lot of your mana and you don't kill Nissa. And that's just not tolerable.
Yep. Oh, it looks like he's... Wow, so it looks like all of his creatures except for Llanowar Elves are going at Nissa, and Llanowar Elves is going at Kevin Thanakit. So Collins is putting a priority on trying to kill the Nissa, which Thanakit gets to make the decision on even if he even cares about that.
Yeah, I think I love this block here from Thanakit. Don't really care that much about the Nissa. Take this opportunity to gobble up a bunch of mana. I assume we're gonna see the cast down on the incubation druid here in a moment. You lose the Nissa, but you leave the turn with a really good battlefield and Mullen just not having a whole lot of mana left. I don't know what was to be gained there by sending the Llanowar Elves in. It's too attractive, I think, for Thanakit to swallow up because Mullen's in a spot here where he has to over-attack the Nissa anyway. It's already hard for Thanakit to protect the Nissa no matter what. So you're just allowing Thanakit off the hook here by saying, like, okay, swallow up your Elves for free. I lose the Nissa anyway, and now your leftovers are, I mean, he's got nothing left. He's got some attackers, but Thanakit's got a full hand of cards. And a 3/3 to block another 3/3.
And I have to imagine that Thanakit is probably going to be okay against his attackers, just given how his deck is constructed.
Yeah, I do not like putting the Llanowar Elves in there. I think it takes a decision that was hard for Thanakit and makes it very easy.
Well, there's an attack there for 3. Unsurprisingly, Collins is not going to block because he can't afford to. He needs these lands on offense or generating mana. Now here's a Wild Growth Walker, follow up as a Merfolk Branch Walker. This reveals a spell. And Collins Mullen is going to be some serious trouble because being a 3/2 is really nice. And there's a Hydroid Krasis, which is even better. Would not be surprised to see Kevin Thanakit leave this on top of his deck.
Wow. Okay.
All right, fair enough. He's going to place that into the graveyard. Perhaps he's got to command the Dreadhorde in hand and needs land 6.
It's really the only justification for it.
Yeah. There's an island off the top, and all Collins can do is just draw and pass, which means he's in bad shape right now. That is an untapped land. They're in Drowned Catacombs, and one does not thumb through their graveyard for fun.
Mullen knows what's going on here. If Thanakit put like a Krasis in the graveyard in that spot, there's only so much it can be.
It's like during the old days of Eternal Witness, not looking just to look. It is time to command that there Dreadhorde, folks. This has been the spotlight spell in this match. Thought it would be Mass Manipulation, but Mass Manipulation has not impressed just yet.
Well, Thanakit has done a great job in the 2 games. In the first game of playing the game on a very short timeline to prevent the number of draws that Mullen had in Mass Manipulation. And in this game, making a concerted effort to minimize the amount of mana that Mullen has access to, and that's another way to play around Mass Manipulation.
Thanakit looking to get back a Nissa, a Tameo, 2 Llanowar Elves, and I believe a Jade Light Ranger.
We have 2 games now where Mullen has cast Massive Manipulation, and in both games, he got Wild Growth Walker.
Yeah.
The end. End of list.
It's got to be better than that. It's got to be better than that. Jade Light Ranger's Double Explorer means that we're going to see Wild Growth Walker gain a bunch of life. We know there's a Jade Light Ranger on top of the deck that Thanakit elected to keep up there. So he's going to move up to 7.
I mean, we're all done here. Mullen can only draw in these spots to, in theory, to Mass Manipulation, and he has no mana to work with.
Nope. Can't cast it, can't do anything with it. So now we're going to see a Tamiyo activation. I imagine it's naming Jade Light Ranger because he knows that's on top of the deck. Hydroid Krasis will be going to the graveyard, among others. Nissa has not been activated just yet. Going to untap a, looks like a Drowned Catacombs. That'll now become a 3/3 of Vigilance. And we might see some attacks here in just a moment, perhaps.
With a 3/5 back on defense, probably going to hold off for a turn. Use the Tamiyo next turn to pick up a removal spell, clear out the Wild Growth Walker, and then we'll see the sparks fly.
Yeah, Collins knows he's dead, and he is going to concede the game as Kevin Thanakit is up 2-0 here over Collins Mullen. You mentioned it, partner. Mass Manipulation has been cast on Wild Growth Walker.
The end.
Going to have to do a lot better than that there, Collins, if you're going to want to come back into this match. And we're going to turn our attention to the sideboard now and get an idea of what these players are working with before we bring a fun feature to you. And Collins' sideboarding is actually going to be pretty straightforward. I got 4 Thrashing Brontodons, 4 Ripjaw Raptors, 3 Thorn Lieutenants, 3 Negates, and Entrancing Melody. You've seen that he came ready for the red matchup. He doesn't have a ton for this one.
I mean, 11 of these cards we disqualify right off the bat in the Thrashing Brontodon, the Thorn Lieutenant, and the Ripjaw Raptor. Those are for mono red and maybe mono white. What you're looking at is 3 copies of Negate. I think those are certain to come in. I think the Entrancing Melody is probably also fine here. Thanakit's, it's obvious that so far the game has been about jockeying on the battlefield. It would be nice for Mullen to have a control magic effect to play in a short game potentially. So I think you can safely consider that as a 4th option.
Speaking of Ripjaw Raptors, Kevin Thanakit's got some of his own. 3 in the sideboard alone, 2 Thrashing Brontodons, 2 of the Elder Spell, 2 Negates, 2 Duress, Vraska's Contempt, a Narset, Parter of Veils, Masker Girl, and a Disdainful Stroke. Bringing some real tools to the table.
I mean, this is a really strong sideboard here. The Disdainful Stroke and the 2 Negates give him some play here against Mass Manipulation. The Narset seems very solid for a matchup where it's going to go on a long time and you're sideboarding in a bunch of spells for more hits. The Elder Spell seems good. The Duress, I could take or leave. It is good against a lot of what's going on in Mullen's deck. There are issues with Tamiyo, so I don't know if you necessarily want to do that. I think the Vraska's Contempt can come in here as well. Mullen's obviously leaning on his Planeswalker. So Thanakit gets up 2-0 in a matchup where I think we all had him pegged as a serious underdog and is definitely getting the better of the sideboards here, no question.
Well, those are your options there for both players. And we actually had a little fun feature with Matthias Hunt where he was on the floor with some members of Team Lotus Box, which of course Collins is a member of that team, about the matchup, how they sideboard, and a few other things. So we'll let you guys enjoy this clip right now.
Good morning here from Top 8 of the Invitational at SCGCon. I'm here with Team Lotus Box after what was pretty much a great weekend, putting 1 player already into the Players' Championship in Abe Corrigan, and then 2 players into the Top 8 of the Invitational.
Yeah, it was a pretty great weekend. These 2 guys played 2 of the opposite decks that we had chosen, but we had only chosen 2 decks. We chose blue-green over here, and we chose Esper Hero here, and I guess neither of the decisions were wrong. So I'm pretty happy about that, but you could have known about this on our Patreon.
So tell me more about that. Well, tell me about Team Lotus Box.
So Team Lotus Box came together a couple years ago, and we've been pretty dominant ever since. We started off with Hangouts, but now Collins and I have moved in together, and we did like a testing house a week ago. I basically played Magic nonstop for I don't even know how many hours. We just ate, played Magic, but we're watching it pay off right now.
So I know we're talking about Collins. You have the first match of the day. You're playing Blue-Green Simic Mass Manipulation. I know I talked with you yesterday, and you said you liked your deck in Standard. You weren't the thing you were most worried about were aggro matchups, but you're all the way on the other side of the bracket from the aggro decks. So how are you feeling about the top 8?
Phenomenal. I really like my matchup against the Dreadhorde decks, and it looks like I'm going to be facing either that or Esper, another good matchup for me throughout the top 8. Maybe I face White in the finals, but White's got to make it through 2 Dreadhorde decks, which I think is going to be pretty rough for him. So, feeling good.
Yeah, so for this first matchup, you're playing against Kevin Thanakit. Have you played against him at all this tournament yet?
I have not. No, not yet.
All right, well, I know, so that's your match. And then we could have an all Lotus Box finals because, Rossum, you're on the other side. You're up against Colin Roundtree. It's an Esper Hero mirror match in your first matchup.
Yeah, basically looked at his list as like a 73-card mirror. So at least I'm on the play, and I have Nightveil Predator in my sideboard, so he has to respect that, and I don't have to respect anything out of him, so maybe that'll give me a slight edge.
Does a Nightveil Predator let you play the post-board games any differently because of it?
Yeah, it lets me actually play like sort of an aggressive role. It allows me to basically, I can play this thing on turn 4, and if he doesn't have an immediate answer, it will kill literally every Planeswalker he plays from then on. So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully he doesn't respect as much as he should, and we'll see.
Well, best of luck to both of you. Both of you have pretty decent top 8 matchups, so maybe making that dream finals come true. All right. Well, we'll go ahead to resume the rest of the match. We'll throw it back to the booth.
Big shout out to Collins Mullen, Awesome Rossum, and Zan Saeed for that little chat there with Elias Hunt. It looks like Collins is going down to 6 cards now, too. This is not great for him.
No, I mean, you got a matchup, and if you're in Mullen's perspective coming in, the fear here is, well, you know what? Thanakit's getting the better of it in the sideboards. Even if he's in a big hole, even if I expect to be up 2-0 at the end of this, I'm going to have to win a bunch of games on the draw potentially against a sideboard with a lot of action. To be down 0-2, now mulliganing, it's going to be really hard for him to claw out of this hole.
We'll see what Collins can put together.
He's going to have to win on the draw twice, in theory.
It's going to be tough. The acceleration belongs to Kevin Thanakit right now with Llanowar Elves. This is an Incubation Druid as we head back over to Mr. Thanakit.
Standard Summer Championship players preparing for the next round.
Branch Walker will reveal Branch Walker. Go ahead.
I also think Thanakit's played very well here. He's it's clear he has an understanding of what matters in the matchup, what his game plan is, and I think his management of combat, of presence on the battlefield, I think he has played a better game thus far than Mullins.
I agree. Branch Walker going to stay on top. Breeding Pool past the turn back. One of the unique things about this Saltite Dreadhorde deck is it does do a nice job of pressuring you while also building towards inevitability. It's got these little knuckleheads here in Branch Walker and J-Light Ranger, which bridge the gap pretty well, but also put pressure on Collins Mullen deck so he can't just twiddle his thumbs all day.
Yeah, I think that, if you're Thanakit, you want to play an 8-turn game. You do not want to play a 12-turn game. And he's done a very good job of keeping the game at around 8 turns.
Breeding Pool's going to enter the battlefield untapped. This is a Tamiyo. We'll see what Collins' names here is. He's going to plus the powerful Planeswalker. Nissa's the name, and it's the whiff as we head back over to Kevin Thanakit. Another Branch Walker, trigger, take a look. Forest going to go to hand. No black mana yet, though, for Kevin Thanakit. He's going to play another Forest. So that's a little bit concerning for a player that has a copy of the Elder Spell in hand. Beatdown. It's going to go towards Tamiyo, knock it down to 2, which means it cannot -3 as we head back over to Collins Mullen.
Standard Championship players, if you are still making your way to your seat, please raise.
Looks like it might be time for a J-Light Ranger, and it is. So, top card, Incubation Druid. That's going to go in the graveyard real quick. Other one, Forest. That'll go to the hand. Forest will now enter the battlefield. J-Light Ranger will be a 3-2. Tamiyo has not been used just yet, so we'll see what Collins wants to do with that spell in just a moment.
Yeah, I think if Collins had another land rolled up in hand, you might have seen him keep the Incubation on top to guarantee a hit with Tamiyo, but he didn't have enough mana to do that. Needed to hunt for a land.
11 a.m. Copper Challenge.
Nissa is the name once again, and it's going to miss once again. Mass Manipulation and Hydroid Crisis going to the graveyard. That's important to keep in mind because Tamiyo can return either one of those cards. Breeding Pool is going to enter the battlefield untapped here for Kevin Thanakit. Again, still no black mana. 5 mana. Looks like it's going to be time for Nissa. Going to be shaking the world, or at least try. But Negate will take care of the powerful Planeswalker. We'll see some attacks here. J-Light Ranger's going to trade with the 3-2.
Great attack there from Thanakit, giving Mullen the option. If you want to trade off here, that's fine. I at least get the Tamiyo down to 1. If you want to swallow up my 2-1, it's going to cost you your Tamiyo.
Breeding Pool the draw here. Looks like we're going to start with Tamiyo. Might be naming Nissa again. We'll see. There's Llanowar Elves, Island, Forest, and Hinterland Harbor. So, gonna miss 3 times with Tamiyo on the hunt for Nissa, who shakes the world. Breeding Pool went into the battlefield untapped. Mullen's gonna fall down to 16. He will tap 6 mana to play a Hydroid Crisis as a 3-3 flyer. Gain a little bit of life. Actually, let's make it a 4-4 flyer. Excuse me. Draw 2 cards, gain 2 life. Back over to Kevin Thanakit we go. This will be a Hydroid Crisis.
You're loath to do it for 5 mana here, but Thanakit I don't think has a land drop, and he really needs black mana to unlock his hand.
Mm-hmm. Found some in Drowned Catacombs, finally. That was the struggles we head back over to Mullen. Mullen will draw a card. He's found a Llanowar Elves for the turn. To go along with a Forest, another Llanowar Elves, and a Hydroid Crisis. How about Nissa, folks? Hinterland Harbor, Tamiyo, Hinterland Harbor, Llanowar Elves, whiffed again. Hope Collins didn't sideboard any of them out.
I'd be surprised.
You and me both.
I mean, and it's not exactly like Mullen's leftovers are that strong. He does have a Hydroid Crisis. That's great here. But you got to be worried now that Thanakit's going to be able to knock out your flyers, take care of your Planeswalker, and leave you with not a whole lot to rebuild with. Because if Mullen here loses both of his Crisises, a follow-up Nissa here is just not that impressive. Mm-hmm. He's out of things to sink mana into.
All right, let's do it for 6.
To say nothing of, with all the milling that Mullen has done of himself, Thanakit's Command the Dreadhorde is probably really threatening too.
Starting to get a little bit better as we go, for sure. As there's a Growth Spiral and a Memorial to Genius. Don't want to ignore that land.
I mean, but Mullins is now, he's out. I mean, he's got a couple cantrips in his hand, but he doesn't have anything else meaningful going on here. If Thanakit could get to this Tamiyo on the following turn, Mullen has a couple redraws to something big, but he's got nothing really going on.
Well, in that case, I think if you're Kevin Thanakit, it's quite important to get to that Tamiyo.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to try to bend over backwards. It's going to be a struggle if he doesn't find a second black mana, because it probably involves chaining together 2 black removal spells. But if he can do it and get the Tamiyo off the battlefield, Mullen does not have a lot going on.
I think Assassin's Trophy may have been the draw. Did not get a great look at it, but that would work.
Well, the other thing that I guess he has the Llanowar Elves up too. I was going to say, the other thing that could, in theory, work, you knock out 1 Crisis and just attack with everything. But you need to clear out 2 blockers to make that a possibility right now. Mm-hmm. And it looks like Thanakit, if he didn't draw black mana, can only get to 1.
Thanakit giving a long look. One game away from moving on to the semifinals.
9 a.m. Modern Challenge. 9 a.m. Modern players for round 3 pairings.
That's a Vraska. Golgari Queen. Powerful Planeswalker to be sure. Of course, the minus ability is essentially Assassin's Trophy. Destroy target non-land permanent with a converted mana cost 3 or less. It's not quite the same, but it will take care of Hydroid Krasis. It's actually Abrupt Decay that I'm thinking of, pardon me, as we head back over to Collins Mullen, who now will get a shot with the Tamiyo, depending on how he wants to go about using it. Island the draw.
I mean, you can get another shot at, if you want to, you can go for another shot at Nissa. The issue there is if you miss, now you're likely to lose your whole battlefield next turn. The way that you can cash out your chips, if you want to do it at this point, is just minus the Tamiyo and get the Krasis back and gas up again.
Looks like we got a Krasis on the attack. Vraska down. Tamiyo's going to get cashed in. Krasis is coming back. This one's going to be a little bit bigger than the last one. So it should be a 7-7 by my math.
I don't know. I think I would have preferred for Mullen there to make it a 6-6 and play Memorial to Genius that turn. There's a good chance he wants to tap out for the rest of the game. The difference between a 7-7 and a 6-6 is not that huge here. It's either going to die to a removal spell or it's not going to die at all. And there's a really good chance that, I mean, it's easy to say Mullen has all the mana in the world to work with. That's not really the case, especially if you're drawing all those cards. So it's a small thing, but I think that would have been a fine spot there to play Memorial just to get out of your hand and have it as an option in future turns. Because when you make the Krasis odd, you're not getting any extra cards or life for your trouble. It's just size.
Sealed Spectacular players, your pairings for your next round are posted at your pairings board. Sealed Spectacular players, please make your way to your seats.
Back to Mullen, we're going to go now. You have to imagine he's starting to pull ahead a little bit, and he's found a copy of Mass Manipulation, too.
Yep.
Here's 4 mana.
And keep in mind with with this Tamiyo, he has the option of getting the negate out of his graveyard and setting everything up for one turn should it go that way.
For a little bit of protection, yeah.
He's also doing well enough in the game that he doesn't even need to really force that sort of issue.
It also kind of forces Tamiyo forces the negate from the opponent.
Right.
And now this clears the window for, I think, Nissa.
Right. That's a win, too. It doesn't... mass manipulation here is the trump that Thanakit really can't catch up to. If the game's going like this and you're able to get a negate traded off for anything that isn't mass manipulation, that's a win.
Looks like Hydroid Krasis is going to go after Vraska. And the Forest is going to come straight in to Thanakit. But this is one of those games where I think Thanakit is actually too far behind.
Right. And that chump block there from the Branch Walker, I think it represents that he's setting up a Command the Dreadhorde. And this is exactly how you draw it up from Mullen's perspective. You force the game into here where Thanakit has to cast Command the Dreadhorde, confront the Dreadhorde rather to, or Command the Dreadhorde rather to get back into the game, and then mass manipulation goes over the top and you cinch it up.
And you take everything that came back. Yep. That's how the game is supposed to go. The first two did not go that way, though. Not even a little bit, honestly. Thanakit wants to see what's going on in Mullen's graveyard. And there are some good options there for Command the Dread Horde. And Thanakit does have 19 life to work with.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same options, though. It's an interesting element of this matchup that Command the Dread Horde is a little bit dampened by the fact that Thanakit and Mullen play a lot of the same Planeswalkers. You can only get back one. But they both have Nissa and Tamiyo among their options.
Krasis here for 4 for Thanakit, so he will gain 2 life, draw 2 cards, so he's up to 21, but his Krasis is a little bit worse than what's going on here on the other side of the table.
Also, Mullen now has so much mana to work with that Thanakit's just at the mercy of mass manipulation. There's no playing around it at this point. If Mullen has it, it's gonna get it all.
Is getting it all good enough right now, though, is the question. Does that lead to a win?
Well, Mullen is in a strong enough position that he might just say, what's even the point? If I'm not sure that this cinches up the game, why would I bother casting it?
Maybe a little fear of duress, maybe.
Well, I don't know if duress would come in this sort of match. First of all, it would require Thanakit to have so much more black mana than he actually has, because he needs a second one to be able to cast Command the Dread Horde anyway, and then the third one to do duress. And I would also just suspect it's not in the deck because of Tamiyo. I think it's a fringe enough card to begin with, and then if your duress it matches up the wrong way against Tamiyo, it's so bad.
Incubation Druid will be adapting. It's got 3 counters on it now. I don't think there's any way for Collins to get all 21 points of damage over at this moment.
So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and we'll call 15 because of Nissa. Yeah, a little short. And because there's a wild, well, although getting in a ton of damage also is a way to play around Command the Dread Horde, right? He just doesn't have enough life to play with. And you get the, part of all this is the 2 Hydroid Graces on the other side of the battlefield are not dead, they're yours.
Yes. That's
also,
the whole other thing.
Right, that's also, sort of cinches up your board position.
Yeah, I think we're going to do some mass manipulating here of everything that's over there. 2 Hydroid Krasis and maybe even that Llanowar Elves, too. Oh, pardon me. This is a really large Hydroid Krasis. He's saving the mass manipulation.
Yeah, why bother committing it?
Which does make some sense. So 6, 12, 14. Boy. It's a big one of those. Refill. And make it so that whenever your opponent does finally cast their namesake card, your namesake card is better than that.
10 a.m. standard challenge players, your next round pairings have been posted. 10 a.m.
Collins may have to do a little bit of discarding here. He's going to start by playing Memorial to Genius. I already used Nissa this turn. That's not going to happen. And now it looks like Hydroid Krasis is going to come in for the attack. Thanakit, I believe, is going to take 4 and fall down to 17, but I think this is one of those games where Kevin knows he's in some serious trouble. He's got access to his deck list as well as Collins, just like you do at home via Cardboard Live.
Also, Mullen has drawn, a dozen extra cards this game at least.
At least.
For sure, mass manipulation is part of it, and it's just sitting back waiting for you to command the Dread Horde. And also, Mullen might just be able to win this game straight up. He might not even need to commit his marquee card to be able to get this one.
Yeah, I think we're at that stage of things where it's unnecessary. It's more of a luxury.
It's just an insurance policy.
Yep. Looks like Collins forgot to do some discarding here, so he'll have to discard on the end step. Too many cards, because he drew so many.
2-headed giant players, your second round pairings have been posted.
So it looks like we'll get this solved here very quickly.
Your second round pairings have been posted.
And then Thanakit will get back to playing and probably losing this game, if I had to guess, as there is finally a second black source of mana. And Kevin slams down emphatically, taking 2 to do so, since it's an overgrown tomb.
Surveys the battlefield, the graveyard. It's not even that good to cast Command the Dreadhorde here, and then
Collins does now have a warning for a game rules violation, we've been informed, which, if those do add up, that can result in a game loss here in these elimination rounds. So it needs to be a little bit more careful moving forward. You spoke towards Kevin taking a look at the graveyard here. Because of the Command Dreadhorde, that's likely in hand. And again, it's just not being nearly enough in this spot.
no. I mean, I think if Mullen's hand was 7 lands, it wouldn't even be clear if Command the Dreadhorde would really move Thanakit back into this game.
You know, if Vraska can come back and take care of a Hydroid Krasis, the large one, of course, which, okay, sure, that's a step in the right direction. Nissa could come back, but again, we're talking about a lot of life being lost here, too. Not really free rolling as much like we were last game.
No.
And given the nature of Wild Growth Walker. So Thanakit's looking at his graveyard with the Vraska, a Tameo, looks like a Llanowar Elves, Merfolk Branchwalker as well. And it looks like this is going to be the selection, so there's Command the Dreadhorde. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Going to fall down to 3. I guess one can hope that the opponent has nothing. I guess that's the strategy here.
Oh, I mean, Mullen just time twisted last turn. I don't know. It's asking a lot.
It's asking a smidge.
You're asking a lot.
Yep. Tameo and Vraska, here's your Explorer trigger. Woodland Cemetery will go to hand from the Merfolk Branchwalker, which will remain at 2-1. Llanowar Elves will be summoning Sick. There's Vraska shooting down the large Hydroid. Tameo gonna get back Negate. Though can't cast it this turn. Now there's another Llanowar Elves. All right, Kevin. I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Yeah. Mass Manipulation, we are all done. So, Collins Mullen is going to get himself back into this match at least a little bit. He's going to win game number 3 here over Kevin Thanakit as Simic Mass Manipulation gets on the board here against Sultai Dreadhorde. We know Collins has brought in Negate. We don't expect to see very much else. For Kevin, he's got plenty more cards to bring in. We saw the Elder Spell stuck in his hand a little bit. We saw Negate. Wouldn't be surprised to see Duress, and wouldn't be surprised to see Disdainful Stroke either. So these players are going to shuffle up and get ready here for game number 4. We're going to watch it all unfold here just a bit.
Welcome back. Game 4 about to get started here between Collins Mullen and Kevin Thanakit. Bit of an upset in progress, potentially. Collins perceived to have the much better end of it in this matchup, but did not play out that way in the pre-board games with Kenneth and Thanakit getting both of them. Mullins, however, able to win Game 3, and now we'll try to pick up 2 post-board games on the draw to try to move on to the semifinals.
Jonathan Hobbs and Michael Hamilton are in Game 4 right now. Hobbs up 2-1. If we have time, we may jump that way.
But you know.
Oh, here we go. What's up? A little pile shuffle.
Give it a wash.
Yeah.
You're allowed your 1. I believe those are the floor rules now, correct?
Yeah, we got this new mulligan that might take some more time. How do you feel about that, the London mulligan coming?
Oh, I'm not the most enamored with it. The time of it, the time that it takes is a slight drawback.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the conversation I've seen surrounding it, both from pro players and the play design team, kind of misses the point. But, you know, I also understand the desire to have more games get off the ground.
Fair.
But when they're talking about, well, we can delve into it in a little bit here. It looks like this is about to get underway. This is a complicated subject.
You think that one of these players isn't going to mulligan?
They might. We'll cross that bridge, you know.
Wow, I was wrong. Oh! Woodland Cemetery to start things off. Lana Worrell's here for Collins Mullen. Back over to Kevin Thanakit. Slow start here for Kevin. Both of his lands entering the battlefield tapped to begin. Collins feeling it. Getting in for 1. Now it's an Incubation Druid. Over to Thanakit will go. That's Merfolk Branchwalker. Trigger, top card, Forest, add it to the hand. That'll be the land for the turn. We're going back over to Collins, who will untap the Lana Worrells in the 2 lands, draw a card, picked up a Forest for the turn. He does have a copy of Mass Manipulation in hand, also a Tameo, and a Negate.
And these early stumbles for Thanakit are really, really problematic. We've focused a lot about the individual card interactions and who's got the better stuff for late games. And that stuff matters a lot. A lot of the way that these games come down to, not just in this matchup, but you know, when we get to our Esper Hero Super Friends matchups and such, it's just present on the battlefield. How well equipped are you to fight over Planeswalkers the turn they show up, or within 2 turns of them showing up? And if a bunch of your lands enter the battlefield tapped and you can't cast your early creature, this happens, where Mullen is able to cast a Tameo, pretty stable spot, and it's going to be hard for Thanakit to run it down.
Was looking for Nissa as usual. Failed that time to Collins as we head back over to Kevin. There's a Hinterland Harbor that does get to enter the battlefield untapped. It is worth noting, as you already have, that there is not a ton of black mana in Kevin Thanakit's deck. He does have 4 Overgrown Tombs, 4 Woodland Cemeteries, and a Drowned Catacombs. That's really it.
Really? That's all his.
Oh, sorry, 4 Watery Grave. I'm sorry.
This is a double black spell.
4, 12, 13 Force. 13. I take it back. I take it back.
I don't care how much you're exploring. 9 is not enough for a double black spell.
I take it back. I take it back.
It's still a little light, and probably why you don't see a lot of copies of Vraska's Contempt in the deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1 on the board.
Speaking of Vraska, that'll join the fray. Take care of the Incubation Druid, and now we're heading back over to Collins Mullen. Mullen will draw a card with an active Tameo and another copy of Mass Manipulation in hand now. See if he wants to plus Tameo again to try to find Nissa. Looks like the answer may be yes. There's Nissa who shakes the world ×2. Both will be added to the hand. And now Collins is starting to do a little well for himself. Another Planeswalker on the battlefield. We're going to see Nissa Plus here in just a moment. Collins, as far as mass manipulation is concerned, has 2 blue sources on the battlefield.
Yeah, Thanakit's already in very serious trouble.
Yep.
He's so dwarfed on resources now, and it's not like Mullins' leftovers are shabby.
This land with Vigilance is going to go after Vraska. Branchwalker can't win this battle, so will it be a chump? Nope. And it sounds as though Jonathan Hobbs and Michael Hamilton are going to game number 5.
And now, with things the way they are, Thanakit's Planeswalkers are shut off for the rest of the game.
Modern Championship players, that is time in round 2.
None of his creatures are going to be particularly good in the face of mass manipulation.
Modern players in the Summer
Their Assassin's Trophy, that is timely for sure.
Well, other than that, Mullen picked up 2 copies of Nissa off of the Tameo from the previous turn.
Another blue source isn't bad either for mass manipulation.
Nope.
Can't forget about that either. I know our other quarterfinals matches headed to game 5, but this one may be too.
Please make your way to the site event registration stage.
Yeah, I hesitate to call it early, mostly because you get mad at me when I do that.
That's true. That's true. Try to keep the viewers here.
But this one is over.
Yeah.
Both players could stack Thanakit could stack both decks.
Boy.
It wouldn't matter. And we will be going to game 5 shortly. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It may take a while.
Yeah, it could take a minute or
It
two.
could take a minute.
Yeah.
But we will be going to game 5.
Collins in a very advantageous position, mostly because Kevin just got off the ground too slow this game.
Yeah, tap land. Third turn was a 2-1.
Yeah, that's not going to do it.
Mullen just ramped into Planeswalkers.
Tameo just has so much loyalty to begin.
Yeah, that one's really tough to get to in combat. The way that you hope to manage it in the last spots is, as long as you can keep it from minusing down, your opponent may not necessarily draw a card each turn, but it's really tough to get through in combat.
Hydroid Grace is coming back here for Collins Mullen. He's going to play a Breeding Pool untapped. The Jellyfish Hydra Beast looks like he might be entering the battlefield here momentarily. Access to 8 mana. Could once again still go with Nissa. But here is Hydroid Crisis for 4. So going to draw 2 cards, gain 2 life, and leave 2 mana available for, oh, what could it be?
What could it be?
Growth Spiral, obviously. As we pass the turn back over to Kevin Thanakit. Tameo, a great card in this deck for multiple reasons, but its interaction with Negate is great as well. In this sequence, Collins does have the ability to negate something and then use Tameo's minus to get a card back from the graveyard. That card can be negate. And that would really stop Kevin from getting back in the game, because the way for Kevin to get back into this game are non-creature spells. Or Llanowar Elf. Growth Spiral on the end step. Puts a forest onto the battlefield after drawing a card. Now we head back over to Collins. He's untapping. He is drawing. He's found a Paradise Druid. Not the best right now. Everything else in his hand sure is good, though. And he's got an overwhelming battlefield as well. Tameo's moving on up. Let's see what we're naming. Hydroid Kratos was the name. That was not any of those cards. Negate most notably placed in the graveyard among those 4 cards revealed by Tamio, as here come the Knuckleheads. Hydroid Crisis in the air. Forest on the ground. Morpho Branchwalker is going to jump in front of that Forest. The big follow-up is a Hydroid Crisis. That's going to resolve. It's a 4/4. It'll allow Collins to draw 2 more. When this deck is humming like this, partner, it's a hard one to beat.
Well, so much of the game just comes down to jockeying over mana and planeswalkers. In the first 2 games, Thanakit able to win those fights very easily. In the 3rd and 4th ones, not so much.
Not so much indeed. We're going to go back over to Kevin now, who's getting overwhelmed in this game. And he has seen enough. Just like you, he knew it was over.
Yeah. He knew it was over. Listen, he knew it was over with the Tamio. He knew. But you got to play it out. You got to play it out.
Yeah, it's top 8.
Yeah.
Where you got to be.
This is the whole point.
That's right. Thanakit looks like he's going to take a moment to get ready here for game number 5. So while he takes a moment to do that, we are going to take a moment and talk about the Season 2 schedule here on the SCG Tour, which we announced a couple of months ago. But in case you missed it, we're going to go over it for you right now. It's going to kick things off with another Team Modern Open. The first one was so successful in Columbus. We're bringing it to Pittsburgh as well. And then Worcester,
Philly, and Columbus in July. That'll be standard, team constructed, and modern. In August, we'll have Richmond and Dallas. That's team constructed again and modern as well. One open in September. That's Syracuse for Legacy. October is a stacked month where we got Philadelphia, Indianapolis, and the regional championships, which will be modern. You can head over to go.strategames.com/regionals for more information as we get a little bit closer to that event, find out the prizes, the giveaways, and the locations. And then we round out October with an open in Atlanta. And then an event in November, SCGCon Winter, featuring the Star City Games Invitational. We'll be back here November 14th through the 17th. And then the Players' Championship, Roanoke, Virginia, December 13th through the 15th.
Playmats is where we're headed now. It's Captain's Quarters, folks. Illustrated by Titus Lunter for our standard opening classic players. We move on to this beautiful modern playmat, illustrated by John Avon, named Aurora's Light. And for our legacy opening classic players, illustrated by Mark Heeden, it is ripped from reality. That poor Minotaur. All these playmats are free and exclusive and designed specifically for the SCG Tour. These are not magic cards. These are designed by these incredibly talented artists, especially for this use, with entry into Opens, Classics, Infinite Challenges, or Sealed Spectacular Packages. Go.starcitygames.com/schedule for more information. As we get ready for our 5th and final game. Kevin doesn't want to play. Collins is ready to battle.
You want to talk about the London Mulligan a little bit?
Hit me, dealer.
So a lot of conversation is focused around win rate, and look at the Mythic Championships, and the Faithless Looting decks didn't even perform all that well, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
My core position is that if you're playing Tron and I'm playing Is It Phoenix, and you have turn 3 Tron a lot more often, and in the post-board games, I have turn 3 Blood Moon a lot more often, that sounds less fun to me, regardless of who is winning more or less.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, that's
fair.
That's the short version of it. But there are a lot of considerations that go along with changing the Mulligan rules, or any rule really, and whether or not gameplay gets more repetitive for eternal formats is, just one factor among many. But I do think it will make the older formats a little bit worse.
I think a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know about a lot of it, but I do think a little bit.
A little bit.
But I think it'll make standard and modern, especially standard, much better. And limited.
Yeah, the game, it depends how you feel. Do you like or not like the games playing more similarly to themselves over time? If that sounds good to you, great. And if it doesn't, then maybe not so great.
I guess we'll have to see how it plays out. Might be time for a Cleveland mulligan rule.
What would that look like?
Not sure yet. But next one they should test out. They should just have every Pro Tour in Cleveland, really. Have no problem with that. I think everybody be well fed at the very least.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I ate very well in Cleveland.
Since we are just giving away food. Kevin Thanakit, Collins Mullen getting ready here for game number 5. Jonathan Hobbs and Michael Hamilton are in game number 5 right now in their match. And then after this game is over, we take a short break. Ryan Overturf, Todd Anderson, they'll be heading into the booth. Evan Buchholz, your number 1 overall seed, and Danny Jessup, your number 8. They'll be playing. Buchholz on Boros Aggro. Jessup on Sultai Dreadhorde. And then Jonathan Awesome Rossman against Colin Roundtree in an Esper Superheroes Mirror. That's your 4 versus 5 on the other side of the bracket. As we mentioned in our pregame show this morning, this is an ideal top 8 here for Collins Mullen. Though had his back up against the wall early, down 0-2 in this matchup, has rallied back to tie it up. And regardless of who wins the other match, it will be Esper Superheroes for them. And one of these two opponents either going to face Jonathan Hobbs or Michael Hamilton on that very powerful Esper deck that Ben Friedman, 40-card Friedman, won Grand Prix Kansas City with. Congratulations to Ben. The last Platinum Pro, as he says.
I work with one of the last Platinum Pros.
Andrew B.
Yes.
Get back to work, Beckstrom.
Back to work.
I know it's Sunday? I thought today was Saturday.
Sunday.
Yep. They all just kind of meld together now.
The Platinum Pros or the days?
Both. Both, honestly. Yesterday, for most of the day, I thought it was Friday. It wasn't.
Corey Burkhart, too. He was Platinum, right?
Sounds right to me.
Yeah. Work with him, too.
Ben Friedman just achieved Platinum with that Grand Prix win. Proud of that little guy. Known him since he was like 16.
What's Platinum worth?
Dude, come on.
You wrote...
Come on.
Not that long ago, you indulged me by running down your bronze benefits.
Yeah. What a slew of benefits they are. Or were, because I don't even know if it's still a thing.
Bronze?
Yeah, I don't know.
Are RPTQs a thing?
No.
Oh, they're back to PTQs now, right? Okay.
And for branding purposes, MCQs.
Excuse me,
So
MCQs.
You're a professional. I've played in a couple. Feels good. Feels good. Winner take all. These players are going to be given the green light here in just a moment. A little sip of the coffee there for Kevin. And we are underway. Kevin Thanakit is on the plate. Does he have Atlanta Elves? He does not. Just a watery grave that enters the battlefield tapped. Collins does, though, as he falls down to 18. He'll take the acceleration lead, as he oftentimes does, given the deck that he's playing here this weekend.
And mana and initial presence on the battlefield, so important here. I don't know if Mullins has lane number 2.
Oh, no. Cast downing that on turn 2 is outrageous.
Love it.
Oh. When you're in a bad matchup, sometimes you got to get a little bit lucky.
Well, it's the battle is so much over mana and acceleration, right?
Mm-hmm. There's a Paradise Druid.
I love it. I love it.
No blocks here, of course. J-Light Ranger going to bring Mullen down to 16.
Great window here for Thanakit to advance his board out in front of Mullen's Planeswalkers.
Breeding Pool is going to enter the battlefield untapped. There's Merfolk Branchwalker. Top card. A Woodland Cemetery. Added to the hand. And pass. Over to Collins, who will draw. An Incubation Druid. Do you grow Spiral first?
That's so risky if you miss.
But what if you hit?
Also, Thanakit might negate you here. He played a Breeding Pool on tap there kind of suspiciously.
It's a very good point. Do you do anything at all? You could leave up negate on your own.
No, I think you got to try cat. You can't. It's so likely that Thanakit, if you miss land drops, there's no way he believes you have nothing. And if you leave up a negate and he goes attack you, land Krasis, so you're just out of it.
Yep. Here's Grow Spiral. That's going to resolve. Hi-yup! Drew Mass Manipulation. He missed. We head back over to Thanakit. Thanakit's going to untap. Thanakit's going to draw. He's got to be feeling pretty good about this one. Here's the attack with the Knuckleheads. Mullen's going to fall down to 12. Is there a Nissa who shakes the world? I guess that would have come down pre-combat had he had it. I like it. Get those creatures out of my red zone. Assert dominance where you can. As Land of War Elves and a land for Kevin before passing it back over to Collins, who's trying to Land of War Elves. Does have the ability to play multiple mana accelerants here. I'm just going to play Land of War Elves for now. And maybe leave negate up in this spot. I'm sure would love to deploy Incubation Druid as well, but might not have the opportunity.
I just don't know what the plan here is if you're not trying to get some mana out there. I know putting the shields down here, you're worried about Thanakit hitting you with something. We're getting to a spot now where Thanakit can play something with negate backup. So, and you also got to start blocking here. You're going to fall to 7 on the next attack. And once you start committing your mana creatures to blocks, it's all over.
I think you have to get to the stage, and I think if you're Collins, you have to assess the situation and say, I just have to get lucky and hope my opponent has nothing. There's Cast Down. Cast Down will be countered. Thanakit will draw. Picked up a copy of Land of War Elves. That's a forest. Here come the doofuses. I think you just have to take all this.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. You got to hope that Thanakit's hands just lands. And he hasn't done anything that good in the last couple turns. He could just be flooding out here. So I think you got to take these hits and try to get with as much mana as possible. If he's got anything at all and you are pinned on mana, you can't. I don't think you can win. So
it's all about assessing the situation and trying to get lucky now if you're Collins. You can certainly make the argument that Land of War Elves blocks Jade Light Ranger and Merfolk Branchwalker, sure. And then if you draw a land next turn, you can leave up. You can play Incubation Druid and leave up negate. You can certainly convince yourself of that. That's not hard to do.
If I'm in Mullen's position, I'm starting from the spot of what's the right thing to do if my opponent's hand is just lands.
Yep.
And that is probably the right play, whatever that answer is.
Well, there's your trade. That's Land of War Elves. This is a decent amount of mana. Well, Vraska's Contempt is going to take care of that, and this is bad news here for Collins Mullen. He will untap and draw. He's found a land, but it might be a little too late. It's an Incubation Druid, which can block Land of War Elves. Thanakit, I believe, has found a copy of Command the Dreadhorde. There's a block. Take 3, fall down to 6. Here's Command the Dreadhorde. It's just getting back mana accelerants. It's not anything special.
Not shooting the moon here.
Nope. Yep. Assassin's Trophy, that's going to stay on top.
Yep, just kill a blocker and try to close this game out before Mullen can do anything.
Play a land, pass a turn back. I can't believe my eyes, folks. We thought this was going to be a great match here for Collins Mullen. And it does not look like that's going to be the case because Kevin Thanakit has played some pretty nice games of Magic here on this 5-game set. And even though he was the number 7 seed and on the draw for most of these games, I think he's going to steal this one. Incubation Druid can block one of these 2-power creatures.
There's Assassin's Trophy on top, though.
Yep, and you know that's going to take care of a creature. So you can, of course, play a Growth Spiral if you're Collins Mullen, hope to hit a land and maybe negate the Assassin's Trophy. But
Yeah, I mean, so you need 2 blockers to be able to survive what's on the table. 1 blocker doesn't cut it. And Mullen's going to sort this out for himself. He's got to play a second blocker and also survive the Assassin's Trophy.
And that's the big problem, because he's not going to be able to do those things.
And he's going to have to block the J-Light Ranger and the Merfolk Branch Walker for this to work too, or at least the Branch Walker. That's a chump block. So even if somehow you survive the turn by leaving up negate, the following turn you have less mana and everything's lethal.
Here's Growth Spiral. That'll resolve. Mullen will draw. He's picked another copy of Incubation Druid. These are the kind of matchups this deck wanted to play. But he's going to come up just a bit short here this weekend after another invitational top 8. Trophy will take care of that, and that is going to do it. Kevin Thanakit's going to win this game and match here over Collins Mullen. 3 games to 2. It's Upset City early here in Roanoke, Virginia.